ET Boardroom Dialogues in partnership with Diageo India. Today we're putting the spotlight on sustainability and carbon action for a sustainable economy and ecosystem going ahead. We're privileged to have with us thought leaders and action leaders from across the industry at this point who are at the forefront not just of policy but also implementing the carbon action and reducing the carbon footprint across the board. Our goal here is to really have a conversation and do an idea exchange across the ecosystem and build towards a sustainable and happier planet, so as to say. With us today, Mr. Jitendra Mahajan, Chief Supply and Sustainability Officer at Diageo India, Mr. Rampraveen Swaminathan, MD and CEO, Mahindra Logistics, Dr. Pradeep Panigrahi, Head Corporate Sustainability of Larsen Toubro, Sunil Alagh, former Managing Director and CEO of Britannia Industries, Pranav Master, Director Consulting, CRISIL Marketing Intelligence and Analytics, Tejashree Joshi, General Manager and Head of Environment and Sustainability at Godrej Boyce, and Asif Bhamla, Chairman and Founder of Bhamla Foundation. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and being a part of this discussion. Jitendra, I'm going to start with you and the commitment of Diageo India towards the race to net zero. And these are very aggressive targets and the Paris Agreement and the dates in front of us. Can you take us through the net zero transition and how Diageo India is working towards achieving the carbon footprint reduction right now?
Yeah, so certainly thanks, Priya. I think at Diageo we believe that sustainability need to be based on the science-based approach, and that is how it will basically come to life. As a result of this, what we did, I mean, we started a journey sometime in 2019, I would say, and that point of time we looked at that where do we stand? I mean, how do we collect all the data related to carbon? I mean, how much carbon are we really emitting from each of our supply chain, each of our value chain ecosystem from grain to glass? And that is where we basically believe that we need to get into basic, get the data right, understand where the carbon is coming from, understand what should be our ambition, and how would we reach there.
Was that a tough process? I want to understand, because even data collection of
understanding
what your carbon footprint
it was because carbon data was never been focused upon, right? Yeah. And it was absolutely not. I mean, there's no system, no processes. So we had to establish those processes and systems. Having done that, a massive work in compiling the data, and which gave us a baseline in 2020. Then we believed in that. How do we basically now have an ambitious target of 2030? So what is the data which we collected? I mean, we looked into all the scope 1, 2, 3, and just for simplicity, I'll just narrate very quickly. Scope 1 is basically all the emission which we carry out by generating energy and using it in our premise. Scope 2 is something which we basically purchase from outside but consume it in our premise, and in scope 3 is everything related outside of that, and an entire ecosystem from grain to glass is basically contributes to scope 3. Once we did that, then we embarked upon an action plan which we call as Society 2030, which is a spirit of progress targets or action plan. The action plan is largely a 10 years action plan which we have devised in order to run a business in a right manner. Correct. What it does is that what we believe that it would do at the end of it is that it would definitely basically make us a far better, far sustainable organization, but also make this planet a better place to live in. Having said that, what are the targets which we set in over there? I mean, one of the element of Society 2030 is pioneering grain to glass sustainability. Large focus is on carbon and water. And within carbon, when we looked at the target setting, we basically said that we need to be net zero by 2030. So in our direct operation, we should not. Our carbon footprint should be zero, and that is a massive task from where we were in 2020. In scope 3, we said that we need to halve or reduce the carbon emission by 50%, and all these targets were really ambitious and then really drove the organizations towards reaching there. And one way we said is that while we set those targets, we will also have action plan, short term, medium term, and long term, in order to fulfill those ambitions in a far more structured, scientific, and orderly manner. I'm happy to share with you some of the progresses which we have made in last 3 years. And if you look at the direct emission at this point of time, we have reduced it by almost 95% from the baseline, leaving only 6,000 tons of carbon emission, which remains at this point of time from our direct operations. 80% of that also is basically from the residual emission from renewable fuel which we burn in our boiler. What it also means is that 100% of the fossil fuel has been eliminated in our direct operations at this point of time. Renewable energy, almost 98.5% is the renewable energy which we use, which is largely solar as well as the biomass based the turbines to generate a captive power. Now, having done all these things, now obviously that 5% which remains and 80% is from the residual emission. One way to sequester that, or one way to capture, is through afforestation, and then we are embarking upon that mega afforestation drive in order to capture that balance emission, which would be inevitable whatever we do. And that is where the focus, that is where we have reached, and I believe that we should be on target in meeting our ambitious goal of 2030.
So actually 2030 is a goal, I think, which across the board everybody is subscribing to, but there are multiple steps along the way. Let me come to you, Ram. At the logistics front of it, you're obviously at the forefront of, and it's very obvious to the naked eye about logistics and their carbon footprint and delivery, and what are the kind of steps you've taken at Mahindra Logistics? Did you also embark on understanding your carbon footprint upfront, or did you just feel what was the process of the policies changing, and what are the kind of steps that have been taken at Mahindra Logistics?
Thanks, Anupriya. I'd say some things are very similar to what Jitendra said. I mean, we've got a goal to be carbon neutral by 2040, actually, in our case, but that's well to wheels, as we call it. Yes, glass to green to glass. Our equivalent is well to wheels. And we did, we kind of baselined the business. We've laid out some targets, but really, it's been around 4 broad pillars. The first one is decarbonizing freight, which is the largest part of our business. And, we've been investing in electric. We have 30% of our last mile intracity logistics now is electric. Probably another 20% is CNG. So we've got a very much mix there. We have got pilots. We're experimenting on hydrogen, on LNG, and a few other things. We've been big investments on what we call green warehousing. So, IGBC certified large warehousing facilities. Nearly 30% of that is now energy neutral. So we made some fairly significant investments there. And the third one has been circularity, which is a lot of operating processes, and that's where a lot of change management and I think, frankly, a lot of culture management has come in. From the way we run our MHEs inside our facilities, the way we make pallets. So we've got, for example, renewable or recycled pallets, which we use in our facilities now. But the one which I think we're investing the most on in real terms, I think, is what we call advocacy, right, and accountability. So the advocacy part is the work we do with our customers, because we are in general services. And so we have to invest in working with our customers and help them move the needle. And that's a fair amount of work. We've got, we invest in tools which actually allow our customers to understand their carbon footprint when they operate with us, and so we can partner with them on reducing footprint. And the accountability part is the internal piece. So all our leaders, for example, have part of their annual performance pay is linked to sustainability performance. Right, so we've actually made that big shift to try and say that we got to lead it from the top of the pipe. So those are 4 things, and there's a lot of stuff which I think is done below that, but I think those are the big 4 things we've really been investing on. And I think as we stand today, I mean, we laid out a target to kind of reduce it by around 50% in scope 1 and scope 2 by 2026. I think we're on track there, right? Probably a little bit ahead in some parts. So I think it's a good place, but it's not enough. It's not enough.
But can I just interrupt because almost every company is going to say that they've accepted it. And every company is going to say that, look, I don't represent a company, so I can say whatever I feel like. I'm just saying there's a lot of greenwashing going on, where almost every company says by 2030, I'm going to do this. 2030 is so far off, I don't even know whether I'll be alive or not. Nobody is talking about that it's impossible in a poor country. In a poor country like India, this is a major task. No matter what Diageo is doing, no matter what Anand Mahindra is doing, whatever Godrej Boyce is doing. Look, I'm just raising a question to say that Oil and steel, for instance, forget it. There's no question of them even achieving anywhere near zero. So if they are consuming so much of CGI, so what is Diageo going to make an impact? What are you going to make an impact? So unless we are able to discuss India as a whole, whilst America, France, Europe can discuss, population is going down, they have a lot of water, they have, they've already done their harm that they had to do all over Europe and whenever they had to do it. Now they are putting it on India and China, which has got the largest population to take care of. It's a democracy in India where elections are held every 5 years. So the minister is going to say, all right, go ahead and do it. But who's going to do it? Unless, like, for instance, when I was in Britannia, at that time, it's all too well to say, look, you must not have butter, you must not have X, you must not have Y. But the guy is not even getting his normal food. So as far as he's concerned, the average person in India wants everything.
Yeah.
So he wants, whether it's butter, whether it's X, whether it's fat, whether it's sugar, whether it's anything in India that works.
Right.
Because the bulk of the population, maybe 200-300 million out of 1.4 billion, are concerned. But the rest of it, when you talk about it, so there, we must stop this greenwashing a bit, because 2030 we have done this. When I was on the board of UB, United Breweries, which is not which stays above you. For 10 years I was there, and we were also trying to but water is consumed. Pepsi and Coke consumes water. So where is the question of them moving towards zero? Unless they change completely, they're going to have more of water. They're going to have more of juices. They're going to have less of Coke. They're going to have less of Pepsi. They're going to have less of everything. Then it's a difficult task, because communicating within an organization is massive. First and foremost, everybody will sit and shake their heads like in Diageo and UB and all, great, 2030 mein ja rahe hain hum log. But where exactly is the problem? And until we don't identify the problem in large countries like ours, then this is not going to work, no matter what we say. That's what my point is. Therefore, I am just going to raise an issue right now.
No, it's a very valid issue about setting targets, and as they said, we've set a 2040 target, because obviously they evaluated Mahindra at what speed they can go. Diageo took up their own timelines, committed to their spirit of progress, as I think the tagline is for their, and so everybody's evaluated. Obviously, it's not a bad goal to work towards, but everybody, yes, there's an imposition of 2030 which may not be realistic.
A lot of greenwashing is going on. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
I want to pick up that point of the cultural change that you said, that it requires a change across the board. It's not just so easy to this thing. I want to come and talk to Dr. Pradeep Panigrahi on this, because L&T is a mammoth. You're dealing with as the chief responsibility of energy and sustainability there, corporate sustainability across the boards. Are you finding it? You have certain tasks and certain deadlines as well to meet. You have certain programs that you obviously would like to tell us about. But where have the difficulties been, or what have been the easiest sort of low-hanging fruits that have been easy, so those get highlighted? But there are obviously bigger hurdles, and infrastructure, obviously saying that we're going to go carbon neutral for a country that needs, I want to ask, for example, Tejashree, how long it took her to get from the good Vikhroli Hills all the way to here as well. So it is a difficult task. But how are you tackling that at the broad conglomerate that is L&T right now?
Absolutely, you're right. So massive organization, more than 1,000 project sites, so many businesses. There are 13 different verticals only for L&T Limited. And then, we have a subsidiary like LTI, Mindtree, LTTS, LTFS. So it's just a massive organization. You're right, absolutely. The best part is that we already have a solid base. Like, Mr. M. Naik, probably he thought about it long back. So for last 14, 15 years, we've been reporting about our sustainability performance. And, when we started our journey on being carbon neutral, we roughly around January 2021, we started this journey, and within a 9 months period, we could, we could finalize our target to become carbon neutral. The entire process of this from January 2021 to October 2021, Mr. Larsen Toubro, our CEO and MD, he was personally involved. when the CEO is personally involved, when the board is personally involved, the board is reviewing this on quarterly basis. And then during the entire process, we have a Green Campus Committee, which is headed by one of the executive director. And in the entire process of identifying the problem, making a granular plan, making the detailed aspects of what you're going to do, how you're going to set the targets. In the entire process, the senior management was involved.
Yeah.
So see, I think that is the crux of the whole thing. If the senior management is involved in the planning process, in the design process, delivery process, entire thing, and then look at the time. For them, every minute matters, right? And the group CFO is also.
So you're saying it's become a priority in the boardroom.
It becomes a priority.
It's on the. It's on the agenda very high up versus and those who've taken it up 10-15 years ago like L&T are finding it easier than those who've woken up after the Paris Agreement was signed and then started to market it and we talked to. But I'll come back to you about some of the programs that you're doing at L&T as well. But I want to go to Asif as well and then go to Tejashree. Asif, you work on the ground at Bhamla Foundation. You do a lot of work. When you hear of all this corporate work, do you see changes on the ground? Because, as Mr. Alagh was saying, that there are a lot of headlines, there are a lot of quotable quotes that come out. But what's changing on the ground?
You see, as a foundation, we've been working on ground. But in a city like Mumbai, which is densely populated and we have these infrastructural hazards. So with all of this, to work on the environmental endeavor also becomes a very big challenge.
Yeah.
But of course, everyone does its own bit. Like we have been now in this field, in the space for past 15 years on the environmental space. So there are two aspects of this. One is the ground level work, of course, which include few areas of work. Like for example, we have this renewable energy, the biogas plant that we've launched in Bandra in a very sophisticated area, with of course the support of the local political arrangements, the residents'
see corporate
association.
involvement? Have you seen corporate involvement?
Yes, of course. Without the corporate involvement and without the support of the CSR arrangement, it's definitely not possible. So to reduce the carbon footprint, this arrangement, it's a segregation of wet and dry waste which transforms electricity to illuminate the entire vicinity of the high-profile area of a Union Park and Pali Hill and Bandra. So this is one of the things. We have also launched the plant which transforms the wet and dry waste, the e-waste management into, the segregation is done. And of course, from that, there are various products. Now, of course, you must have heard Adidas is using it for, because sustainability is there in every aspect, if you ask me, right? From food to, and more than that, the awareness to that has been increased. And in that, my foundation has been playing a very important role. We work with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and in fact our foundation we are fortunate that from past 2 years were awarded in the United Nations Environment Program headquarters in New York for the extensive work that we've been doing. I mean, देखिए ज्ञान से अब लोग थक गए. Awareness also plays a very important role. So every year on the World Environment Day, we come out with a musical campaign which involves the film personalities who exhibit the do's and don'ts, like for example, the air pollution, the water pollution, the biodiversity. And then last year, of course, the system was One Earth. So the plastic pollution. I said the biggest issue and the biggest challenge is plastic. You see, we know, we all aware when we talk about the green revolution that 500 years it takes for plastic. And this year the theme of the United Nations Environment Program has been on beat plastic pollution. So we as policymakers, we are involved with the government. We've started a campaign by the name EcoBiz. You see that the hospitality industry is the one which comes out with the maximum plastic wastage. If you ask the 5-star hotels, the restaurants. So we have started a dialogue between them and with the administration. Of course, we having a little political affiliation, it gets things easier. Like we involved a meeting where, so we've come up with a campaign, the EcoBiz, which involves stakeholders like hospitals, hospitality industry. And these stakeholders, we had a joint arrangement with the policy makers in terms of the Mahanagar Palika to ensure that there is reduction in we reuse and recycle. That is the main mantra. And these policy makers with these hospitality industry and the hospital heads. You see how we can reduce, because there's no place. The Devnath dumping ground is done. There's no place. So you have to ensure that your waste is managed by your own organizations, be it big hotels also like Taj Properties, be it big hospitals like the Ambani Hospital, the Lovely. So these awareness issues, foundations like us ensure that we play a role between them, the government, and us as an NGO.
And sometimes policies is thought out with the right,
of course,
right sort of intent, but implementation is a very big problem. Like we saw with straws as well. Like they come up and say you cannot use plastic.
The usage of straws, if you remember, the plastic was banned. But now again, I think it is by large the largest menace. Of course, now the corporates have become so conscious. We have Diageo, we have all the big corporates. I'm sure they've stopped the usage of plastic and all. But apparently, still there is still a long way. We need to find alternative arrangements.
But they come at a cost as well, and there is a cost to sustainability, which
I'm sure we have a Prime Minister who's a very passionate environmentalist. Honorable Narendra Modi ji from the Red Fort, if he talks, you see, about sustainability. We've talked about the Paris Agreement. Now we've seen with
we're at 26, 27.
Yeah, 26, 27. So all these arrangements, G20 summit, of course, it highlights one planet, one future. So see, these are eye openers, and they play a very important role not only in India and globally today. India, if you ask me, it is a leading solar energy. It's a leader for solar energy.
It definitely put the spotlight. It put the spotlight where it needs to be. Tejashree, I want to come to you on the point where Asif was talking about how big corporates have to take the responsibility of taking care of their own waste. I mean, it's as simple as that. Take care of your own ecosystem. At Godrej Boyce, you've done leaps and bounds in that area. How difficult was it, this waste segregation, usage of wastage? And you're in furniture and cybersecurity. There's a lot of things that go behind inventions and innovations as well. But take us through what has been the ground check reality of your movement at Godrej.
So I think for Godrej, basically driving sustainability isn't new. It's been done for decades, and the company has identified environment as one of the values. So it's not just on to make it look good, but the mere fact that we have been conserving a large tract of mangroves in a city like Mumbai, where there are heavy pressures on real estate lands, because we know that the ecosystem provides a great service to the city in terms of climate regulation, is a mere fact that the intent has always been there. Having said that, what we today look at sustainability, and I think the change in approach has been to make it more streamlined with the mainstream with the business. At the same time, look at what is material for an organization in terms of materiality. That is, it has to be contextual to the organization's activities and its impacts. Because if you see sustainability, it's a wide umbrella, and you could keep grappling around what is to be done, and then really not see the outcome that you really want to see. So materiality forms a very important aspect, and that's what we did. In fact, we put up framework to our sustainability journey way back in 2010, and we call it Good and Green. And the Good and Green framework has been developed both bottoms up, looking at our businesses, its impacts, its areas of influence, and what is the value chain that we want to consider in this journey. At the same time, it has looked at a top-down approach in terms of where is the world moving towards, what is the future imperatives on climate and sustainability that the entire globe is moving to.
Right.
At the same time, how does it percolate down to what is important for us to contribute in that?
But when you say, Tejashree, that it's a value, right? And I know that Godrej, like some of the legacy companies as well, there's a culture of value that is passed down. So it's obviously about percolating that through the organization, like you said about Diageo as well, that you're being responsible supply, talking to your suppliers as well. How do you communicate that within an organization, that something small, like let's not keep throwing the glass out. I mean, they're very small things to do, but how is that communicated within an organization?
So that just to I was coming to it, but see, having set certain targets is one thing.
Yeah.
How do we actually implement and translate those targets on ground is what a journey is on sustainability, and that's what we have experienced over the last 10 years. Obviously, when you are early movers, you need to learn a lot through experimentation. And one of the most important aspect in this is to involve employees or even your partners at every stage of development. So when we are talking about circularity, when we are talking about waste, in fact, relooking what waste is in terms of resource, and instead of just talking about recycling, looking at upgrading or upcycling a material where the value of the material improves because of its intended use is not just recycling. That only happens when there is a lot of innovation, and you encourage not only your employees to think from a design for environment perspective, but also have your partners onboarded for co-creation and development of these solutions.
But is that step 2? I mean, is that
Yes.
Is that step 2, because you first have to sort of
Yes,
clean up your own
yes.
house?
Exactly,
If I have to use that
yes,
word, right?
yes.
So, Mr. Pradeep, come on that, because Tejashree mentioned about innovation.
Absolutely.
And at L&T, because you have the power of a tech company as well, and infrastructure on the other side, how are you collaborating that to make sustainable realities? And then I'm going to come to Pranav to ask about what corporates are coming to him and saying, where are the challenges at this point? And Mr. Alagh will then shed light on how to sell sustainability better to the consumer. But Pradeep, let me start with you. How are they talking? How are the pieces of invention and innovation talking to each other to make it happen?
Absolutely. I think, I completely agree with Tejashree, and, by the way, I know her for a long, long time. So, you see, in our vision itself, we have put that word innovation, sustainability vision. So, what we are trying to do, having set the targets of 2040, how do you now drill it down to the ground level?
Yeah.
How do you involve everybody? And then how do you innovate to make things work, right? So what we do is, we have identified around 200 initiatives around carbon and water. And those initiatives would, help us in a couple of things, like that 3 or 4 buckets. One is that we want to improve efficiency by 2.5% per annum.
Okay.
Okay.
Elaborate on that. When you say improve efficiency across the board?
Yes, across the board. So
sustainably improve efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely. So improving efficiency means improving efficiency of your, let us say, diesel consumption. Okay, you want to improve on that. Your petrol consumption, or any other acetylene or whatever. So overall, 2.5%. Then what we want to do is abatement. That is, basically we are looking at biodiesel 5% by 2026, solar 50% by 2026. So today we are at 10%, and do we want to reach?
Give me an example of how you improving this efficiency.
Right.
I just want to understand for a layperson watching this, when you say how do I become more, I think there's lots of conversation how to become more efficient. So
Absolutely.
How does that translate?
Absolutely. So what we're trying to do is, say, for example, wherever there is a diesel genset, we are trying to move it to electricity. Okay, so trying to move from diesel gensets, like today diesel contributes to around 62% of our emission.
Okay.
So we are moving from diesel to electricity. And when you move to electricity, it becomes easier for you to move to solar. So that is the path.
Oh, so you're saying first you move to electricity. And though right now that electricity is coming maybe not from the most sustainable,
it's a mix.
The second scope then is to move that electricity to come from a...
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if I can add
That's
to
all.
what he's also saying, it has to be a very systematic and hierarchical approach when we are talking about efficiencies that he said.
Right.
You start basically in terms of getting visibility of your consumptions, and that's where the whole technology in terms of IoTs, in terms of artificial intelligence come into picture. That if you have that real-time data the line managers have the real-time data in front of them in terms of every machine, what is the kind of pattern of energy consumption happening, where are those aberrations in terms of wastages or leakages.
Absolutely.
Then you are able to take quick actions in terms of reducing those impacts. So the first step, obviously all companies probably look at, is plugging the leakages and reducing wastages to bring in more efficiency.
The low-hanging fruits, basically.
These are the low-hanging fruits, and then move on to identify which are those machineries which are due for replacement because of them being either old or being high consumers
So the
of
machines are
energy.
talking to each other and then talking to you.
Absolutely,
Yeah, in fact-
Is
and
that what's happening?
Absolutely. No, in fact, I think we were discussing a little earlier also, 13,000 of our machineries, equipments are connected.
exactly,
IoT.
yeah.
So when it connected means, what is the efficiency of diesel consumption, what is the efficiency of petrol consumption, and also that also helps a bit on safety. So when it is hyper connected, then you know what is happening on real time basis,
Right.
and then then you are able to control it. And you control it, then your efficiency improves, and then you achieve the target year on year.
Okay.
So I think a lot of thoughts have gone into making this transformation from A to B, and then from B to C, and then you go to achieve the target. So we have something like Lakshya 26 targets, 5 years targets. So we have built this carbon water neutrality into the Lakshya target. So that by 2026 you achieve the first milestone, then go to 2030, and then go to 2040. I think that is how the whole thing will move.
Jitendra, I want to come back to you and talk a little bit about what Diageo is doing on the ground, on your day-to-day decision making as well. How is the transition being embedded into?
Yeah, I think I'll just draw up what has been already said by Mr. Swaminathan and Pradeep. So it is something which need to be embedded into top management, the way of working, as well as into business, and it is no different to us as well. So, for example, in our case, the entire commitment has come from it basically trickled down from the top management, and in fact, the senior executives carry these KPIs, and it is something which is considered for their variable compensation as well. So what really happens is that from the board level, we have board committees for reviewing, monitoring, and catalyzing this performance related to ESG. Then at executive level, we have the monitoring team, which basically a cross-functional team which looks at opportunities from time and again,
Right.
on what can be added, what can be done more, reviewing the data, and then as Tejashree also spoke about, in terms of the interconnected world, you basically have a real-time data where you can take immediate actions in order to make sure that you deliver those results. Having said that, and what really happens is that when we actually flow it from the top, and then when you embed it into the way you do business, it delivers some significant opportunities to make a difference. I just share a couple of examples. For example, in alcohol industry, for example, if you buy any of the premium products, a year back, you would always see mono cartons or the lot of paper basically being used to attract consumer. Last 1 year back, we took a decision because of this embedding sustainability in the business. We could be able to take that decision. I mean, no one could have thought about it earlier. And then we just took off the cartons from the bottles.
Impact on business, do you think?
There was anxiety that whether it would have a impact on the business, but consumer now, I must say that customer and the trade responded really positively in this entire process, and thereby saving almost 10,000 tons of paper, almost 7,000 tons of carbon. I think that is a massive one decision, but a larger impact, and that I'm sure it is possible because of embedding sustainability into the business, embedding it in the decision making right from the top to bottom. This could be done. Similarly, brands. Some of the brands has adopted sustainability as their brand identity. One of the brand which we have was Signature, for example. So as a part of that identity, they now are committing themselves to invest into plantation of mangroves in Orissa, which basically helps to balance the ecosystem there. At the same time, it does capture significantly higher amount of carbon as compared to the traditional tropical forest.
Right.
So overall, what I'm saying is that the moment you embed it into the business,
It
moment
becomes
everyone
part of
is
the
it becomes
decision
part of
making.
the decision
Every
making,
time
it's part
you're
of
making a
day-to-day
decision,
decision making,
it is-
right?
So
Can I just throw in a perspective there, just to what Jitendra said on the structure and the governance part. So we also do score a lot of corporates, almost close to 1,000 corporates on ESG. And what we have seen is that governance really drives your E and S as well. So as long as you have governance practices which are embedded and they flow right from the top, good governance practices flow into environment and social elements as well. And as a whole, the sustainability quotient of the organization in turn kind of improves.
But what does that translate to, Sunil? I mean, that's what I've heard well to wheels, green to glass, good and green. So everybody's got their slogans right. Everybody's got their slogans right, right?
Look, see, when you reach a stage where it affects your business to stay, then everybody starts thinking about it. Like United Breweries started thinking of where to save water because that affected the making of beer. Like in Diageo or whenever it affects the business, that's the time when they wake up. Not otherwise. Please, I mean, if you're using fuel, oil istemal karte ho and all products, everything, but they don't think of where is it oil coming from? Where is the coal coming from? Unless you wash the coal, unless you reduce the wastage there.
But I think that is step 2. I think that comes to step 2.
No, but step 2 I'm talking about as a nation. I'm talking not as individual companies.
Sure.
Everybody is going to stay in that individual company bit. But as a country, where are we going? We want to go into manufacturing. Now, how are you going to go into manufacturing without carbon being there stuff? You are saying IT companies can survive. Okay, you don't get into...
But IT companies also have a significant
but they have, but it's less. It's a lot less, but you're now moving towards manufacturing. Now, as a country, I'm not meaning Diageo or L&T or any as a company, but where do you go with that? When you talk to the politicians, no matter which ministry you go into, and then after 5 years, I got to stand for elections. I got to be elected again. The people are going to understand, maybe around this table they've understood. When you go into the villages, do they understand? They don't. What they are saying is, where's my rice?
But we can't give up now.
No, you're not going to give up. You're not going to give up. But I'm just trying to say the Paris Agreement worked on towards 1.5. I don't even think 2 is going to be achieved. Forget about 1.5. Well, the Paris Agreement today, we are talking about where we are going to go. Maybe 2040 instead of 2030 for Diageo.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that until we don't look at it realistically, until we don't look at the problem in terms of India as a country, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because we on a table have taken
but
a
we
cost.
on the table are India, right?
No, we are not. That's the problem.
But we are the industrial ecosystem.
No, but if you're going into manufacturing
let me go to the logistics.
I mean, I understand that, but I think the contrary view would be, we're all necessary. I understand we are necessary but not sufficient.
No, it's not sufficient. That I know. Every effort is
not sufficient, but I think somewhere it has to start.
It has to start somewhere. As I was talking about sugar, it has to start somewhere. Start labeling your products. Everything has to start. But to say that, look, in the next 5 years or in the next 4 years, we're going to achieve it, no matter what you do.
But if I take
one second. I'm just finishing.
Sure.
Let me finish this.
Of course.
All I'm saying is that you brought it into the values of the company. How many of them have made it into where your promotion depends on it, when your increment depends on it? Then you'll know in an organization that my increment will depend on this. That's when you will know it. You brought
Which is
it
what...
in. Diageo, everybody, every company is greenwashing today, saying nobody is arguing with you with the concept.
Of course.
Everything is going to be accepted. But like if you wash the coal instead of transporting it for thousands of kilometers, in India you have to transport it. But if you wash the coal in advance, you save on wastage. See, when you say wastage of electricity in India, I mean, where are you going to stop?
So I would not agree with what you are, some of these points you are saying. I'll just give you a couple of examples. Some of the early movers, L&T, Tatas, Mahindras, there are many companies. They've done fantastic work in last at least 10-15 years. We have saved 100,000 tons of CO2 without knowing that we are saving. In last 10 years.
So maybe the media is to blame. Maybe we started putting in headlines.
One second. I'm not against any organization not making an effort.
Course.
Yes.
All I'm saying is that we should focus on what should the country do.
And what does the country need? And what does the country need?
So the point of view here is, while country has taken a target on decarbonization, and we'll talk about the Panchamitra and so on and so forth, as corporates we need to do a bit more, because when we are talking about a country, it is the entire social movement which also needs to align with it. When we are talking about phasing out coal, it has to also look at the social aspects of livelihood of people who are dependent on coal. So the transition will have to consider all that. But as corporates, it is probably easier than a nation state doing, but therefore the corporates need to do it in a more accelerated way to facilitate the movement of the company.
For instance, now in UB, is it CSR, the activities that we were looking at? Is it easier for you to make a school wherever you got a factory, or to save carbon footprint? Which one will you do?
So,
no, one second.
So let me differentiate when you're talking about.
Endless money, you're supposed to do everything. You're no question.
I think
the government says, I have endless money, I'm going to give rice, chawal, everything to everyone. No question about it.
So you're forgetting that India's...
So and I don't think you need to pick one.
That India's commitment to renewable energy.
Yeah.
If you see, I mean,
I've got a list of what we should do. That's coming to the end.
No, so at just this point...
Raising an issue.
No, so this point I have
hydrogen. You see that in itself. You see the government in itself is very committed towards issues when it comes to supporting of course sustainable industries. When I mean, especially if you see there is greater investment in renewable energy sector. There are tax credits, there are subsidies, and feed-in tariffs. So these are all the kind of support, the backups the government is offering to ensure that there is more attraction in terms of investors in business houses also to transform into sustainable arrangements. And if I may read out, there is India has become one of the world's leading solar energy markets, and you see this Pradhan Mantri Kisan Urea Suraksha thing is also gained a lot of momentum in terms of supporting the farmers to ensure more and to give it a fillip to the agrarian economy.
But that's exactly what I think the point that even Pradeep, Ram and Jitendra Tejas were making, that when it comes top down, the dissemination of the culture and the ideology becomes easier, but it doesn't go away, as Mr. Alagh is saying, without its challenges, without the holistic view. Pranav, comment on this as well.
Just to the point that you also made, I think they're valid points, and in that context, I think now increasingly corporates as well as government is talking about just transition. That it has to be equal across, because there's going to be loss of jobs. So what should we do? So there's upskilling that is happening. So
but upskilling is very, I mean, I can tell you, even for someone is skilled in, suppose I'll give example of in media, to upskill yourself from being, say, just print to multimedia to starting to do Instagram live to, it's massive even for someone who's on the upper end of the education banner. How that movement on a ground level is a mammoth task.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that from the beginning.
Top 3 concerns that corporates come up with you with. I mean, we've heard about. I want to talk about the challenges up ahead with Mr. So obviously, you interact. Anybody with the ESG in their name at this point in their corporate card has had a very busy time over the last few years. So when you're sitting at a table with the likes of thought leaders and action leaders across, what are the top challenges that they're looking to address or solve at this point? To add more fuel to Mr. Alagh's argument.
He's got all the water. We are the fuel. He's got the water.
It took me about 5 years to get even Eat Healthy Think Better as a line for the company.
And this is coming from an ex-CEO.
It took me
Britannia.
5 years to drill it down to the guy who was carrying a carton on his head. It's so simple that you are saying together, "Ye humne kar diya, wo humne kar." If you don't drill it down, it took me 5 years. Maybe it takes 2 years now. It took 5 years from me. But, explaining it to people who are educated, very easy. But drilling it down becomes the other. I raised that question on rice. I raised it with Anand.
That has always been the biggest challenge. On-ground execution is something which has not been something which has been an easy task.
It's a challenge. we should spend more time in discussing how to overcome that challenge.
Which is
As
why we're
opposed to
having
saying
these dialogues.
What everybody has done. We've all done greenwashing.
Which is why these dialogues and seminars like this, you come out with some
Pranav, I still want to hear
outcomes.
the challenges because I want to go beyond the greenwashing. There is obviously when it comes to scope 2, scope 3, and everyone agreed to it. Nobody is saying this is an easy ride.
Yeah.
This is not. What are the top 3 troubles that people? How are we going to navigate? Okay, I've put solar on my rooftop. I have segregated my kachra. I've made my kachra into electricity. But what after that? There's a lot more to carbon zero as well.
We made it sound very simple to Mr. Alagh. It is not that simple. It was not that simple.
Everyone's going to take him on a day tour.
No, everything that you're saying, it appears as simple when
No,
we're
it's not.
discussing it. When you actually go down and do
It
it,
was not. It was not.
it is becoming impossible.
No, because Sunil has gone through the grind, right? From
I'm
the
just telling
execution
you,
at
a
the ground
simple line
level
like that.
to optics. I mean, there are two different things, you see. It's very
easy
easier
to
convince and say and speak. Jaise Sunil ne bola, on ground level, the same thing, the execution and implementation
Where
is
is
certainly
the
a big challenge.
execution? Where after the boardroom to the barricade of the corporate corner of the corporate office, what are the challenges now, Pran?
See, I think clearly, some of them have been
Not the
highlighted.
presentation challenge, not the kinds they put on the PPTs. I mean the real challenge.
See, I think the real challenges are clearly one is in terms of a long-term policy and regulatory clarity also. So, for example, a lot of corporates today now we are talking about renewable energy.
Yeah.
There are clearly at a state level significant hurdles which are there, be it administrative or be it from an economic standpoint. These are actual implementation hurdles which are there. So what is critical is for corporates to make those investments in sustainability, there should be long-term policy and regulatory clarity. That this is the roadmap that India as a country envisions. These are the incentives today that are available. They will be phased out in this manner. These are the timelines for it.
But in terms of government policies, if you're saying, in terms of ease of working, if you see from what it used to be earlier,
Absolutely.
the things are simplified.
Nobody is questioning
But
that.
what was 10 years ago, reality
10
to not
years,
that
we are all
comparison.
moving in the right
What
direction.
Pranav is now saying is 10.
So if
what
you,
will you give
no,
me 10
no,
years
I,
from now?
No, he mentioned the point wherein there were various challenges. I mean, not that I'm just saying on behalf of the government, but if you see from what it used to be, the policy paralysis and the execution
I think that's the point.
and the levels of
He's saying
So he's not
Ram
talking
wants to know
about
that 10 years down the line, will this decision I'm making
See, because
be
a lot of
able
these
to be
investments-
executed with the
Yeah.
tax
So I
benefits
think
that are
what
available?
he's saying is not the policy paralysis. What he's saying is about the uniformity and consistency
lot of these
and clarity on
solutions are
policies, which is
technology
changing.
intensive, they
Of
are
course, the space is
capital
evolving. That is probably
I
the
agree
reason.
with Pranav to a
Yeah.
great extent, because when we sat down to look at this going from 10% renewable to
Correct.
50%, what Pranav is saying, exactly we are facing the same problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now, so we have put how do you do, how do you go to the next level? So we are putting up a structure, we are putting up a team who will work focusedly only on this. And also, of course, there will be investment from different, from business, outside the business and so on. So I think the policy challenges are there. And like, for example, renewables, each state has its
Has its
own.
own
That's
policy.
where
it
is
is coming,
state to
yeah.
center.
State to center.
There are center and then
There
there
has to
is
be
very
uniform
very
policy.
stagey
I'll
state
give you a
diagram.
very small example of when I was heading Britannia, we had X amount of money for charity. Now, cancer is damn good, AIDS was very good, this is very good. So you spent small, everything, you never got known for anything in that company. So I said, no, we are going to go in to save the tiger. That's it. So anyone came for cancer, I said, very good, but please leave my room because I don't even have 1 rupee for you. So until you don't focus yourself
Yeah.
into an area of involving a community, then you will not get known. As a company, you will not get known.
No, but I'll
As
tell
a
you,
country,
every corporate now has made it a policy to take up a cause.
No, you have
If you ask
made
me
a
in terms
That
of
is policy
CSR,
mandated also.
policy or a fight. But I'm just saying,
in
now
terms of
India,
CSR
in India,
also,
for
like
instance,
Godrej, I mean, we are now working closely with Godrej. I'm sure
you
you're
have a
aware.
head- You have a job for head of sustainability for that reason. No, because he's passed it on saying a team will decide
So if you
what we
see-
have to do.
Godrej is doing. I mean, it's a very credible thing that in which Godrej is involved in a very big way in reducing the carbon footprint measures. They've been doing a lot of strategic steps. The kind of work I was myself very taken away with the kind of work they're doing for the protection of mangroves.
I'm not taking away from what Godrej has done, or what Diageo is doing, or what Mahindras have done, or what you're doing.
But we're still on point number one. We still have
Just a couple of
the arousal on challenges is a lot more right now. So that should tell you
No,
what
because
the
see,
balance
when
is.
we are talking about 10 years targets and perspective, it comes with the challenges. And if we have transitioned for 10 years, we've gone through those challenges, and then
Moving
not
on.
all are overcome, of course. But there are many that you find solutions to. And
I'm sure you do. There's no question in my mind that you don't.
So it
But
is
I'm
not
saying now for
greenwashing
India,
when we are setting
in
targets.
India, for instance, we have a lot of land. We have a lot of sunshine.
But we have,
one
but
second.
we have land places not where we want the
No.
land.
We have a lot of
We have
abundance
land.
of wind. Now, we
Yeah,
should
you're
invite
right. I agree on that.
foreign companies in to say, look,
I
we've
think
got it
India
compared to any other
India
country.
is
I think
the
there are
Why
best
don't you
in-
come and invest here?
Are they investing, Pranav?
Absolutely, at least
Are
on the
they coming
renewable
in?
on the renewable energy side, all large corporates from the European market are present in India. There are huge number of sovereign wealth funds, private
But are they
equity
doing it alone,
funds.
or are they collaborating with?
So there are typically platforms that are available which are investing in renewable energy, and they're backing them
okay.
through equity
So is funding
infusions.
a problem? Is funding the cost
That was the
efficiency
other.
a problem?
That was the other point which I was going to bring up
Yeah.
in terms of finance availability. Maybe say not for larger corporates, but today we have a very large base of MSMEs as well. And I think if India as a country needs to progress, I think they also need to move up in the sustainability curve. And I think from their perspective, I think availability as well as cost of capital could be a concern.
I'll just answer to that. Cost. He says cost of capital. So green finance has become another big thing. We have raised 107 million USD recently. SLL, Sustainability Linked Loan, recently from Sumitomo Mitsubishi Bank. Mitsui Bank. Sorry. So when you have a good plan, good target, people are ready to invest. If you do not show what you're going to do, if you're not very granular, they'll not spend money on you, right? Or they will not invest on you. So what we did is we had a very clear-cut granular plan, and that is how they came. They saw that we are capable to achieve whatever we set to target. We have whatever targets we have taken. So we got that money. Now those kind of money, sustainability linked loans at a premium, is available. So I think we should tap that market. But
that's available to
one
you.
more,
You're L&T.
Anupriya.
But you're
So
L&T. It's available to you.
I can talk
What
about
happens
L&T.
to the MSME?
May I
No, so I
yes.
think, when we talk
Anupriya,
about value
I
chain
will
development.
tell you one more thing, which is one of the biggest challenges, of course, because we, as the foundation, have been working in the field of water, in the water pollution, air pollution. The biggest challenge that's going to be happening in years to come is going to be the water challenge. Wars are going to be fought on the
Which
issue
is why
of water.
currently my colleague Melanie is discussing that.
And I
with
will,
another panel
and
that's
I will
part
tell
of the
you,
boardroom
and I will
dialogue.
tell you, these we have got some very accomplished corporates, who India is blessed with three different seasons, of course, winter, summer, and rain. So these big corporates, the rainwater harvesting, I think we have in the policy making as a foundation, we have met, of course, the chief minister just last week. And we've submitted a policy decision to ensure that all societies do make this mandatory and compulsory, the rainwater harvesting thing. So the corporates also should ensure, because this monsoons rains that comes, it goes wasted. This can be utilized by by all the corporate houses like Godrej. I visited the headquarters. It is such a huge. It's got acres of land. So within that, the kind of water that we can save, we can, I think, use that for the entire year for our own purposes.
You don't feel like you're in
So
Bombay when you're in the mangroves of
Yes,
Godrej.
exactly.
For instance,
So
carbon tax.
that's a very big issue, because the scarcity for water, Sunil, I'm telling you,
I know that.
we understand.
I'm
Every summer we have a 2% cut, a 3% cut. So we have to ensure that we have our own reservoir, and for that, this policy making in which my
See, there
foundation
I
is going to
agree
the
with that.
world
is playing
is
a very
saying
important role.
to
in
have
that.
a carbon tax. and that will make Indian steel far more expensive than what it is. Now Tata Steel and all are all fighting it, and the government of India said, give us more time.
Yeah.
Another 10 years, another 15 years before we bring it down to zero. So the question of pressures will keep on arising.
Correct.
So therefore, the government of India is asking for more time. Why should we have more time? Like everyone is saying now, 2030, 20. You must do it. You have to do it.
But
No, but then the...
But always
when you
there's
fight
a,
something,
Sunil,
you
there
have to
has
fight.
to be set target.
No, I understand that. But there's also pressures.
Without the stakeholders, without the,
I agree with you on that.
it's always
That
a
part
team
is
work.
very
Despite of this fact, we are
You see,
not.
the Prime Minister's committed for
we
for
are-
zero carbon by 2050 in the summit.
now.
2017.
2070.
Sorry. So in
Sorry.
fact, I was saying that
2070.
many of the challenges.
He's committed for that.
Sorry, what I was saying is that many of the challenges basically leads to opportunities, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
that
of
is what we have seen earlier also. And then I believe that most of the challenges will get converted into opportunity going forward. And particularly when we talk about MSME, I mean, as the large corporates basically started focusing on the scope three, and then really ambitiously go behind that, MSME will anyway be part of it. And as MSME come in picture, I think the impact will be at least 25-50 times of what it is today.
Yeah.
And if that is going to happen in next 5 to 10 years, then one would see it is over encompassing the benefit and the effect of that.
I
So-
think now even
Yeah,
the regulators are becoming more and more stringent. You've seen SEBI come out with multiple,
Yeah.
See, the
norms.
question
Sorry,
is...
I just wonder Jitendra, do you see the scope 3 that as you move to scope 3, what are the key challenges that you see?
Yeah.
Because you were highlighting what Pranav just said as well.
Yeah, and I'll again refer to Mr. Alagh's point. I mean, he talked about it was so easy. So I mean,
I
agree.
can talk, but I don't represent any company. That's why I can say what I like.
But I agree with your point. Yes, I mean scope 1 and scope 2 was relatively easy because it is in direct control of you. But the moment we move to scope 3, it would obviously not be so easy. But at the same time, it is possible.
Yeah.
And it is possible in a similar way that we have. I mean, the organizations have done scope 1. What would happen in scope 3 is basically you would touch upon all the entire ecosystem, and in our case, it is right from the grain to glass, right from the farmers, suppliers, logistic partners, and till it reaches the consumer and even post-consumer. Correct. So it becomes a massive chain to take care of that, and we believe that yes, in case we need to really make a significant progress over there, we can only do it through a lot of collaboration, partnership, and the same point which we are talking about in terms of getting everyone into it.
Which
Correct.
is why we're
And-
having these conversations.
Correct.
No, I
and
think,
and large part of it, I mean, if you look at last few years, there's been so much of innovation, so much of experimentation which is going on in multiple fields, and all those things can be accelerated, can be leveraged significantly well.
Scope 3 may you got to make it into a socio-economic activity. Communities have to get involved. There's no question.
Exactly.
I'm not taking away from anything that so far what we've done. Please don't think that because I was a cat.
Community
No, but
engagement.
you're
No,
But
no,
I'm saying-
community engagement is a core. I agree
Why
with
don't
Sunil,
we
definitely.
go out and say
Without that,
we are
there
not-
is.
Okay, we are. I'm talking
Without
about
the
low-hanging
community
fruit.
engagement तो आप outcome ही नहीं ला सकते हो
नहीं,
ना
नहीं, IT we
you have
don't
to
follow
policy
all the
decision
world.
नहीं हो सकता उसमें policy making के लिए you need to have community engagement
Bhai Sahab, we know IT is one where we go all over the world. Everybody talks about IT. It's the least of the whole gang of manufacturing. It does the least. So therefore, there's IT. Why don't everybody bring their IT and reload into India from all over the world? See, there are many opportunities, but we have to focus on just the next couple of years has to be focused on not on so many things. Because if you focus on all, you're going to achieve nothing.
आप
What
अगर
have- what have
community
we realized
आप
is-
अगर
Right,
community engagement की बात करते हैं अनुप्रिया for a small thing I'll explain we have this center so we have these rack pickers so these are all the poor
But
people who
that's what
come
Sunil
from
saying,
this
that
poor
is-
society
that
they're
is
playing
what
such
we-
an important role you see ये जो rack picking
But
से
we
जो
can't start from there. The corporates
Renewable
can't
power.
start
Actually,
with
it is-
focus.
you
They
know,
have to
when we
start
talk
with the
about-
broader
No,
Yeah,
corporates
exactly.
are
Then
definitely
comes
hiring. No,
When-
corporates
so
are
when we
definitely
actually talk of a
engaging with
corporate-
with NGOs and with organizations who are involved in
what-
in activities like this and for the greater good and of course नहीं मैं इस पर बात करूँ because Sunil mentioned
No, I
community
completely-
engagement.
No,
I'm
there's
just
a-
referring to
in
that.
Godrej
Even
is
a
a big
small
community.
community plays such a vital role in larger interests of sustainability for the overall development.
But Sunil has touched a very, very vital point. just because we have to, meet the targets, we cannot go all over. Right.
Yeah.
No,
You have to focus on three
and
or
that's
four
where,
key
the
points.
materiality aspect, when we talk
Absolutely.
about
So
sustainability,
focus
come
on 3
into
or 4
picture.
points.
And
Efficiency,
when we actually,
renewables, technology, retrofit, whatever retrofit you can do, innovations, 4 or 5 key things you just focus on, and majorly scope 1, you just focus on 3 or 4 things, you can achieve a lot.
See,
and scope 3, what will happen in scope 3? My scope 3 related to his scope 1.
Yeah.
My scope 3 related to
True.
his scope 1.
True.
So it's
You're
all
right.
mixed,
Then
right?
the ecosystem.
see, when we are
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
value
So we
chain
all have to-
transition,
yeah.
when we talk about a corporate's value chain transition, that's precisely what we
Right.
do. That as a corporate, these are your certain impacts in scope 1 and 2. But when you bring along your value chain or supply chain with it, you are talking about their scope 1 and 2, which is your scope 3, right? Rightly what he
Yeah.
was saying.
Yeah.
We drive this cluster programs for our suppliers. It not only improves them on quality, not only improves them on their processes, but sustainability as well. And today, when we are talking about carbon border adjustment mechanisms and these kind of onslaughts which would keep coming, you can't isolate yourself from that, because you are not an island. You have to, and there is always an aspiration in MSMEs to also become exporters. So the moment you want to think about it, you need to elevate yourself to the level where you need to cater to that markets. And that's where, large corporates can handhold their value chain in terms of improving their status on these indicators of sustainability.
What will also start happening is, since we are doing a lot of work with even banks and financial institutions, they are now talking about integrating ESG into their credit appraisal mechanisms.
Yes.
And as that starts happening, there could be covenants that get starting built into loans, wherein either you have to have a roadmap for the future, how you're going to green your projects, your organization, or otherwise you live with higher costs.
Yeah.
So with the banking system also coming into play, things are going to change for the better.
Ram, I'm going to get closing words around as well. I'm going to start with you to understand. As a large group of Mahindra, we've got, like L&T, you've got tech on one side, auto on the other, logistics happening. How easy or difficult has it been to collaborate the sustainability ideology across a group? I'm not talking about just about the policy that is coming from the corner office. I'm talking about utilizing the efficiency of all the arms to the best of the capability. How easy or difficult? Because if it's difficult within a company, then when you go to scope 3 and go to an MSME, it's going to be even harder.
No, I think for us at least, I think like many of the other groups, this has been kind of a long-term game. I think Sunil mentioned we've been built on this RISE philosophy now for a long, long time. And it's been very embedded in the way we work. So I think collaboration inside the group has not been hard.
Okay.
It's been easy for us to get things together. We have a group level sustainability council, a lot of our leadership sits on it, and therefore the alignment I think comes in quite naturally. I think our larger challenges have been aligning internal policy with, I would say, the divergences of public policy, right? And the fact that there are divergences around there, and I think so that's been one challenge. The other one is, I think, as you get to scope 3 is a tremendous multiplier. But also requires real investment in the ecosystem. Because, for example, for all of them, my scope 1 is all their scope 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? In real terms, what is scope 1 for me is scope 3 for all of them, right? So I think it requires this incredible investment in kind of really partnering, and that's where there's a different challenge in how do you get incentives sorted out around your ecosystem.
But Rampraveen, what you're doing is that if I know that you are into EVs, you are into hydrogen fleets and things like that, I would try to come to you, right? Then going to somebody else who is guzzling diesel.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of collaboration
That's a
will happen a
multiplier,
lot.
exactly.
It will
So
happen
that's
a
a
lot
multiplier.
in next couple of years. So I think you are setting a trend in that sense, right? So you are decarbonizing your fleets, and thereby you are improving our scope 3 emission reduction. So I think that's something very interesting happening in India. And I think I like what Asif said. A lot of good things are happening, and a lot of activities are there. India is now buzzing with so many activities, and I think we are leading almost in every field. So that's something very positive.
I think on that positive note,
Yeah.
obviously it was very clear from the discussion that there is a lot of headlines that media catches on to. There's a lot of greenwashing, but there is a lot of real groundwork that is changing, and that's exactly why we're having these dialogues in partnership with Diageo to discuss where the ecosystem is at. With the discussions around Scope 3 and the challenges, like Pranav was also mentioning, it's obvious that we'll have more of these and we'll see where it heads off. But thank you everyone for being here, for giving your insights, and great to have all of you. And I'm sure we will catch up again and have a more heartful discussion on where India is really going as we go green.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.